and checked it out.
Oh, that I didn't know that. That's
Yeah. She went and
fantastic.
she checked it out. And she only told me that you're there and all of that.
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
great. I would love
Okay,
you
we'll
to,
start now.
yeah. Sure.
So, good afternoon, everybody. We're very, very glad that you've joined us today on the Women Inspiring Network. Women Inspiring Network is a platform which took shape during lockdown. We are more than 5,000 members. And for this particular session, we've collaborated with Prem Jain Memorial Trust. And we'll have Payal Jain joining us shortly, and she'll tell us a bit more about the trust. So, Women Inspiring Network took shape during lockdown, and with our collaborations on our film series, Winning Mind with award winning authors, we've had a 10 million reach already. And today we are very, very glad to discuss design and sustainability. We had done a series with IIT on fashion, tech, and sustainability earlier last year. So I'm so glad that Anju Modi, Angelique Dhama, Sumiran Kashyap have decided to join us today. And do keep watching this space for more. So I'd like to start with you, Anju, Mrs. Modi. Tell us a bit about your journey and how did you start thinking about sustainability in your own words? Tell us a bit about yourself. And for those who don't know Anju Modi, she's one of the most eminent designers of the country today. She's, of course, designed for many, many films and is a board member, has been with FDCI. So tell us about your journey, Mrs. Modi.
Okay, so, well, it's a kind of, when I look back, it's a long, long, winding road I can see. I was born in a small town, Ranchi, which is a beautiful semi-hill station. So I think I was born amidst nature. So the sustainability factor is not as if, we start learning and thinking. I think I was born amidst that. And it was in our lifestyle. And I'm talking about some 80 years old, because now I'm 81-year-old. So in those days, the way things used to be, like, okay, sustainability was part of our life. We were not wasting anything. We were recycling so many things. Like the newborn baby used to be wrapped in a old soft malmal sari fabric, and if we are leftovers with the some kind of vegetables, then we used to make a chapati out of that. So
Yeah.
I think the reusage and not wasting anything is the key word for that, and also an environment where I think where you are nurtured and cared for, all of it, like including the nature and the people around you and the trees around you and everything. So I got this sustainability factor imbibed in my DNA. So I would not say that I'm learning it. It has become a very kind of a buzzword in these days,
Yeah.
and people have started talking about it. But actually, it is in our lifestyle, and that is from where I kept on. Then I studied, and then I came to Delhi, and then I separated, and then I went to Bangalore. So all these kind of, I would say, the hardships, or as you say, the roadblocks become your climbing rocks. And because I went to Bangalore, I learned the weaving art from all the southern village sectors. I traveled and stayed with them, saw the village and our culture at the very, like, a raw level. I will go to Jamnagar, Mundra, Mandvi, and travel through trains and buses and taxis. तो मैंने बहुत नजदीक से अपने संस्कृति को देखा है, एंड आई हैव काइंड ऑफ अब्सॉर्ब्ड इट. वो दैट मिट्टी की सुगंध है, अमलतास की छांव है, एंड दैट समुद्री किनारे पे, बीच साइड पे हम बांधनी डाई कर रहे हैं. तो बहुत सारी चीजें ना हम अनजाने में सबकॉन्शियसली अब्सॉर्ब करते हैं. सो I would say all these hardships has been kind of a lucky factor for me. And after that, then I learned the craft of our country, and our crafts are the very, very great examples of sustainability. And I believe in it. And all the more reason now, after now, when the world has come to a standstill, to realize it and understand it and do some conscious efforts to bring it forth and, teach each and every consumer of mine that what's the precious thing is this, like when the human hands are making certain beautiful Banarasi brocade, and if that is handed over to you through your mom or grandmom, it has got so much of value in it. The sentiments, the perfect acumen of the craftsmanship, and the longevity of the whole culture, the vibrations, the beautiful aesthetic textile and garment. So everything it is carrying forward and giving that same depth, soulful feeling to the next generation.
So now,
there.
yeah. So Payal has also joined us. So Payal, I was telling everybody that how Women Inspiring Network and the Prem Jain Memorial Trust has collaborated for this particular session. And so Payal, tell us a bit about what does the Prem Jain Memorial Trust does and your journey into sustainability.
First, I will just say hello to everybody here, and thank you, Anju, for being here. It's always lovely to hear you, and she's one of the most positive people I've ever come across. She's somebody who's
my God, thank you.
Honestly, it's just lovely to be on the same platform with you. I will take a minute to talk about the Prem Jain Memorial Trust, and this was founded in memory of my father 2 years ago. He was known as the father of the green building movement in India. And he started talking about green buildings 20 years ago when people only thought green was a color. And he started with 10,000 square feet, which he was a consulting engineer, he designed buildings. And when he would go to clients and when he talked to builders, nobody would want to spend that extra 5% for a green building. So the journey started with the first 10,000 square feet when one person agreed to make their building green. Today, India is at 7.75 billion square feet of green. And his mission was to get to 10 billion by 2022, which we will hit by 2022. We lost him 2 years ago, and the movement carries on. And this trust was formed to bring together people who believe in sustainability. And I don't think it's limited only to buildings. As Anju said, it spreads into textile, into fashion, into the way we live, into how we eat, what we discard. And I truly believe Indians intrinsically are green, are sustainable. We grew up with those values. We've just forgotten them. Our parents threw away nothing. Our grandparents recycled everything. Here we are being like the West, and we're forgetting who we are. So even when it comes to fashion, I think it is so important to go back and work with your craft, with your textile, and promote that. So coming back to Prem Jain Memorial Trust, we do this Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav once in a year, which is 1 week of celebrating green in his memory. And people from the whole country sort of come together and do activities related to sustainability. Till last year, it was only planting trees or a walkathon or a marathon or something. This year, we've done online things. And I think we have probably touched 100,000 people this year through online. There's a mask challenge, there's a architecture challenge, there's an art challenge. Plus they're colleges. So we basically reach out to colleges. So our audience is engineering colleges, architecture colleges, design colleges, and I think that's where the message has to start young. Next mission is to touch schools. And I think if you start thinking about sustainability at age 5, then that is something you will follow. Not if you think about it at 40, you can't possibly change the way you think or function. So that's in a nutshell. And I'm just very pleased to be here with Stuti and the fact that Women is doing this. I mean, this is women power. You see here this whole panel of, amazing women in their own right. So I'm just very privileged to be here. Thank you, Stuti.
And so now my next question to Angelique. Angelique is President Marketing for OBT, and she's dealt with artisans, weavers, and has put Proud to be Indian series for the brand OBT. So Angelique, in your own word, please tell us a bit about sustainability and what is it that you have done, and a bit about your journey as well.
Right. Thank you, Stuti, and good afternoon to everybody here. So, on sustainability, we'll start there. You know, when I go third, both the ladies have already said what had to be said on it. And but yes, I mean, for us, you know, at OBT, it's really a way of life. We turned 100 last year, 2020. We in the beginning of the year, we were also excited to talk about it, but then you know what happened, the lockdown and all of that. But what I want to say is that, you know, we have been sustainable all through. I mean, we started our first water effluent treatment plant in 40 years ago. You know, we are solar powered. We use rice husk instead of coal. So all along the way, we mechanized the water washing of the carpets so that we reduce the consumption of water by 90%. We make carpets. Basically, we are a carpet manufacturing company, but it's all done by hand. So again, you know, sustaining the craft of, you know, over all the hundreds of years. So I think sustainable is really a way of life. It's not some new movement that's come about. But yes, there's more of an awareness today. But I think we've always sort of tried to be sustainable where we were.
And Sumiran is an influencer and she's a fashion and a lifestyle writer. So tell us, how did your journey into sustainability start and a bit about yourself?
First of all, good afternoon to everyone. And I have to say, and I will not tire of saying it, I'm so pleased and so privileged to be part of this panel. Stuti, thank you so much for bringing me on board and giving me a chance to spend my afternoon with all these lovely ladies. I'm actually, I used to be a recruitment consultant for private banking for the bulk of my working life so far. And this was a happy accident, if you will. It was serendipity that I had the kind of career turnaround that I've had. And I really enjoy writing. You know, I do feel that there is a soul purpose, soul connection here. And when it, you know, I kind of accidentally fell into blogging on Instagram. I was quite happy on WordPress as a writer. I was quite happy just pitching my work out to people who needed written communications and content. Just happened to stumble onto Instagram. And I realized that in the specific area of fashion, I realized that what really attracted me was trying to find out exactly what went into the making of the garment. You know, so when I was blogging about a fashion show that I was attending, of course I would take in the scale and scope, but I wanted to know more about why that motive, why has that been repeated, why that color scheme. You know, I really went into the textures of it, and it actually feeds into a sustainability lifestyle that that was part of my childhood. My first memory of the use of fabric sustainably was katran, if you will, the katran of bed sheets or whatever. But my mom used to use it as rollers. So she would find a way to twirl the hair and, you know, tie little knots at the end and go to sleep with it. And you wake up with curls in your hair. And I thought that was so fascinating. So that was, it just came to mind when everyone was talking that was actually my first memory of sustainable use of fabric, you know. And even now when I write for the clients that I work with or for articles that I cover, I really like to go into, the folk culture that might have given rise to the embroidery or the color schemes. What is the, story of the source provenance? What is the story of the culture? I mean, when you tell me something like the women in India, women in Punjab, when they're working on Fulkari, they have to sit together and sing. It is almost mandatory that they have to sing because that infuses some sort of magic into the way that dupatta might be created. This is what delights me about writing in fashion. And sustainability for me is actually very multifaceted. Yes, there is the environmental aspect, but there's also the socio-cultural aspect and the economic aspect. You know, that's how you make a sustainable lifestyle. So your cultural memories are one part of it. Your identity through your work is one part of it. But the fact that you're also earning money, your livelihood is also one part of it. It's all interconnected. It all has to be harmonious. So that's where sustainability is important to me. It's about a system that, self-heals and self-rejuvenates and can keep itself running through the tests of time. That would be a mark of sustainability for me.
And I want to just throw this open. So what do you think are the sustainable choices which brands or fashion houses, or let's say brands like OBT, Angelique, they have to do to make it better. Do you think sustainability should be at the design or the concept stage? Can you tell us, a bit more about it? Throw some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to design into it. I mean, it really goes from concept where you're thinking of the materials that you're going to use. You're thinking about the craft, whether, it's something that is long lasting. So, and design and everything. So it's all sort of woven in the concept stage. And also your processes, like I was mentioning earlier, the processes, whether it's how to save water, how to use vegetable dyes so that you don't, ruin the environment. I think all of that is pretty much, when you're aware, right, at the concept, you design into it, and then you have a sustainable product and something which is long lasting, something which is valuable.
And Mrs. Modi, have you imbibed the same when you have started for your brand, your label?
Mm. Well, as I shared that I actually accidentally started with the very much the handloom weavers, and they are all using the natural fibers, cotton and pure silks and pure zari and everything. And I stayed with them, the dyeing and everything what they do at home with their own vegetable dye colors, and then they do the thread dyeing, and their ceiling is all the water hangs, beautiful, colorful hangs were there. So somehow, subconsciously, I learned all of them. And then when I really need to make a living for myself, I made that as my basic platform. And then I started, making our, very, you can say the age old historical references of Angrakhas and those. And I visited so many museums also. So every time my inspiration was from the historical references, but at the same time, I always believed in, reinventing it or kind of making it relevant in today's modern usage. So if it is used in that manner, and then it has so many all multifaceted factors, which Simran explained so very beautifully, that it has the sensitivity, it has the usability, recyclable, the quality and beauty, so that people pass it over to the next generation. And of
Yeah.
course, the less carbon footprint, as we say. So I think all these factors, I just make it my cornerstones of my, brand. And as I call it, like I feel that I'm rooted in the richness of my ancestral history and nature. So I am a kind of person who just kind of flowers beautifully, spiritually and emotionally, while I'm amongst the nature, and the chirping of birds and water, moving, and the Ganges and whatever. I mean, I can go into my romanticism stage when I am among all these
And
kind of
Payal,
places.
your take on it?
If I may add to that, I think nature is so therapeutic and so beautiful to all of us. I think it's to all of us.
Yes.
And so why shouldn't the indoors be as natural as the outdoors? And I think brings you back to why a green building, the air quality is that, the light is natural. So you should feel as happy and as joyful as you would
Yes.
sitting in the middle of a forest. And whether it inspires you to create textile, or inspires you to write a poem, or take a photograph, or whatever it is, I think that beauty comes from nature, and we have been destroying this nature. I think COVID has come like a serious
Yes.
wake-up call and a slap in our faces and say, do something now, it's going to be too late. But coming back to your question, which you were asking everybody, I think, sustainability has to be at the root of your ideology. Even when you're creating a fashion collection, you first have to believe in it. You
Yeah.
can't think about it when it's ready and say, now, is this sustainable and can I call it sustainable? It can't work that way. It has to start from ground zero. Your choice of fabrics, how are you weaving them? What are these clusters? What kind of conditions they live in? Are they healthy? Are they, do they have nutrition? It's all of that. Everything has to go into that. So it's pretty holistic. For me, I think it's very holistic. It's the way you live and the way you operate. Not just how you create a product.
Absolutely.
Yes. And in fact, Payal, you made a very important point, because the pandemic made all of us reset ourselves, rethink. We all were like moving at such a fast pace. So from a business perspective, from a fashion industry perspective, from a design perspective, any of you would like to throw light on how has the pandemic affected our businesses, and especially on the design, fashion space?
Well, yeah, I can go first if it's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, since we export, we used to make thousands of samples, right?
Yeah.
So we're making them and then, showing it to the customers, and they select some, and the rest are just, they're with us, or we use it for something else. But with this pandemic, at least, we gone a lot of digital. So a lot of resources are being saved now because we do a lot of work on the computer. So we make a very informed decision, when the client is absolutely ready for it, and that's when, it gets created. So I think we are saving a lot of resources in that context. And so I think that has really helped. And I think for businesses, especially luxury businesses, it's all experiential, right? You want to go there, feel, touch, and then only sort of buy the product. But now people have learned to sort of understand how it is online. I mean, online is booming. So I think that's been a huge sort of change, the way people are purchasing and doing things. So
Sumiran?
I think I would speak from the other side, as it were. If I'm writing, I'm basically reflecting the viewpoints of people I'm writing on behalf of, or people who I'm writing for, who are the readers. And I find that across the board, uh, there's two things I want to talk about. One, that there is greater pride in, re-wearing something. It's always been part of our culture. I think in many aspects, the pandemic has, it looks like this. I'm not saying that haven't been changes, but it looks like certain changes are more obvious than others simply because they've been accentuated. Re-wearing and reusing things, as we mentioned earlier, has always been part of our culture, but people are being more proud and more comfortable with that. For a very long time, the audience has felt like certain industries, be it fashion, be it beauty, be it other segments of luxury, have been kind of, been preying on the insecurities of people and the competitive streaks that people have with each other about always having the newest thing first and before everyone else, and ideally no one else should have it. On the other hand, people have a little bit more confidence in how they perceive themselves and how others perceive them, because they're happy to re-wear something or repeat certain things. The other aspect is, and some might say it's just clever wordplay, but I mean, perhaps that's the only way I know how to do it, but I really like the idea of repurposing something. It's not just about recycling, but repurposing it means that when you have given it a fresh identity, you have also probably given it a fresh purpose. And especially with heritage textiles and things, because it is so beautifully made, because it's so impeccable in its craftsmanship, it might even get the new identity, but its original identity doesn't get compromised. It still carries some of its original charm. So I find that we've understood the idea of recycling and upcycling a little better, but we've also gained a deeper appreciation for what happens after the recycling is done. What is the purpose of that reinvented article, and how does it fit into our lifestyles?
Yeah. Mrs.
I
Modi,
think-
your thoughts?
Well, the same as we have really kind of cut down on the wasteful expenses, not only expenses, I would say wasteful time splurge also. So we are very much now doing a much more productive output on our daily basis. And I feel not only the product wise, even like if we are kind of making a better usage of our time with a more conscious awareness level. So that is, according to me, is kind of a part of a sustainability, factor. And at the same time, as we all are doing a less of the unnecessary samples, and none of those competitive streak is there among the audiences. So they are very focused that exactly what do they want. I am not also into the selling mode most of the time, that which we used to be earlier. okay, if you don't need this, don't do it. I rather am the person who says, don't buy, you don't need it. Just take this one and complement it with your other products. So, well, business-wise, it has kind of hurt us a lot. But at the same time, it has helped us to declutter the whole of the noise in our mind, in our organization, and in our, like those financial
That is true.
spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So I think we have all learned our lesson with a lot of, like a bang. They have given us a big knock on our head, and I'm very glad about it.
And Anjuji,
very
don't you
much
think
today,
people will, go for something which is more expensive, more valuable rather than getting 3 or 4? They rather buy one.
Yeah.
Yes,
Whole
very
sustainable
much.
drive.
Very much. They are valuing, and I think it is our job, rather our responsibility, to make them aware that this has taken so many, 30 days of human hours, and this painstakingly making the whole thing meticulously, kind of
Made us realize.
kind of perfect, but imperfect because of the handwork done.
Yes.
So the imperfection in the perfect mode kind of a situation. So I keep telling my people, ये बांधनी है तो इसमें देखो दाने हाथ से राई डाल के बांधते हैं. And then I realize that they don't even know about it, and they look at me with like a new knowledge coming to them, and then they respect the piece. So we need to make our, and another aspect of this whole thing is that it is very recyclic. Like if I sell a thing made out of bandhani or a beautiful textile, it goes back to my weaver and it is his livelihood, and then people kind of respect that and they buy. Another lot of people buy that again. So I think it's kind of completing the cycle, the livelihood of the sustainable to each and every person.
Yeah. And see, like we were talking about how India is all about craftsmanship, handmade goods, artisans, weavers. How has technology, or what role can technology play now? Especially, we've all realized the importance of technology. I mean, like we don't all need to meet physically, but we are all meeting virtually. So, in your particular industry, what is, and anyone can answer this first,
I think one thing I will add to what everybody said for the previous one was what the pandemic has done is also made you look homeward. So you don't necessarily want this imported this and the imported that, and because you've had time to pause, think, assess, and probably the best things that you have in your home or in your wardrobe are those which were either passed down from a previous generation or something which has an emotional quotient to it. And so as Anju rightly said, so also the whole value of your own craft, your own heritage has increased many-fold. And I see that in my clients, I see that in young people, I see that in students. So you're educating yourself also, even if, of course, we are all educating our clients. But I think they themselves have become much more aware of how important it is to look inward and promote your own indigenous crafts or your own industries, even if they're small businesses. So people are looking at artisan cafes, artisan breads, food, cheese, you name it. Everybody's encouraging your own versus importing. I think that to me is a huge change which has happened. And then technology, since you asked, I think access has become much easier, Stuti.
Yeah.
So through technology, you can find whatever you want. You can actually find a sari from a Pochampalli weaver sitting in your home. When could you do that? When could you, if you want a basket, a hand-woven basket, you can find that.
Yeah.
I think that's what technology has done for us, made access so easy for everybody. You're thinking about it and there you go online and there it is. And in 2 days, it's in your home. So I think to me, that's like a big, big change.
Yeah. At this point, I'd like to share, an extract from a recent conversation I was having with someone, a very interesting point, that I think one of the challenges our artisanal economies or our artisanal, regional clusters are facing is that the younger generations don't want to pick up on the craft, and take it forward. The younger ones don't want to learn. But the interesting development now, and perhaps it has, dawned upon these younger members of the respective families during the lockdown, perhaps they've thought about it differently in a good way, that the younger generation is probably more interested in adding that technological spin
Yes.
on their family business. If they don't want to do the old fashioned techniques, or they don't want to learn that, or they feel like it's not really for them, they're able to develop an interest because they're thinking more from a marketing, branding, retail point of view, however they might want to do it. I mean, I've received, I'm connected with individual block printers or ajrak printers in Rajasthan. I can tell, and I've managed to confirm it from people who know better and who are more experienced, that these truly are the next generation, or the sons and daughters of printers, weavers, etc., who've made Instagram pages, and they're just scouring the internet and looking for people who can help them spread the word about their work. There is a weaver I know who's in Maheshwar, who's very active on Twitter and Instagram, and he's putting pictures of his latest work, and he's tuned in with all the language about fresh off the handloom and so on. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. So I think it's wonderful to see that. It's very reassuring. At the same time, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I find that there are a lot of older generation artisans who you can't entirely coax to come towards you in the cities and work in communal spaces or factories or whatever. You have to go to them. So unless they come to the cities themselves for work, if they're not looking at that, they are very happy, proud and comfortable where they are. You can come to them if you want, right? So I think technology helps bridge that gap as well. And having said that, since we're talking about sustainability, I feel like it's a two-way process. For sustainability to truly be sustainable, it has to be both ways. So it's not just about getting people to adapt to the technology trend, as it were, but if technology is truly that powerful, it also has to adapt to certain aspects of the culture that cannot change or will not change, or is too delicate to change. I think that two-way exchange has to happen for it to be truly successful.
Anjali, you, Mrs. Modi.
Well, being a handmade carpet company, I mean, we still are pretty much, in the villages. We have 25,000 weavers who are pretty much still in their homes or in their clusters and working.
Yeah.
But yes, I would say at least, there has been no loss of business because of technology. The fact
Yeah.
that we've been able to communicate with our customers, keep their seasons going, keep the looms running. So I think that has helped us. If we didn't have all this technology, how could we be doing Zoom calls with America, showing them product online and, through the cameras and all of that. So I think that way it helped us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if this happened 20 years
technology-
ago, what would have happened? Everything would have been a standstill. There would have been no work happening. Nobody wants anything. You cannot travel. So I think at this time, it's not so bad.
Yeah, of course. I mean, technology has accelerated a lot of all these digital learnings. And I would say, like, since I was working with the weavers in the remote villages, Maheshwar, Chanderi, Kanchipuram, Venkatgiri, many, Banaras. So even since 15 years before also, they all had the computer savvy people sitting with them, and they were taking my designs to the computer. They will send me the graph work of the weaving design through the computer. I will approve them. So I'm talking of, somewhere around 2005, 2007. So it isn't that the people sitting in the villages are not smart. They were very smart. They could use the technology to their advantage, and it's a tool. So how the mind uses it, or you become slave to it, it's up to us. How do we take advantage of the all these technologies around us?
I'm trying to think of how to keep my 6-month son away from it now. Trying to devise a plan, like how can I avoid showing him a phone or a computer.
No, and one of the things is, what steps do you think brands in India now are taking towards, because now everybody's also talking a lot post pandemic about sustainability. So whether it's fashion brands, luxury brands, any brands in general, what do you think, from an observation, what is our step towards sustainability in India? Because I think we didn't realize it as much as we've realized about the subject more in the last 1 year. And if any of your brands are doing something about it, please throw some light on that.
I think
So-
definitely part of it is sorting out your home. I mean, sorting your back end out in factories. You have to make sure all your health, safety, basic practices, hygiene, all of that is in place. You know, your people are taken care of. You are, of course, not wasting. You're not using paper. You're recycling as much scrap. You're not wasting water. I think those are basic things. You have to get your house in order first before you can think about bringing that into your product also. So first you have to be following all of those sustainability practices in your premises, wherever that is. Or if you're
Very
working
true.
with clusters, you're working with weavers, what kind of conditions are they working in? You do have to get involved in that. You can't be dispassionate and say, but I'm doing everything in my own factory and I'm looking after my people, but I don't care where this comes from, and it doesn't matter as long as I'm able to buy it at the right price. So I think the moment you get involved in all of that, that in itself is changing some small part of the ecosystem. And then it goes on to bringing it into your brand, of course.
And Dilip,
educating
your practices for OBT, how has that been what are the practices have you all adapted?
So, like I was saying earlier, you know, apart from, you know, the way we are structured with our solar panels and, you know, the husk rice that we use and water wastage and vegetable dyes, now we are creating a biodegradable carpet, so that, you know,
Ah,
the whole
wow.
concern about, you know, where is it going to stack up eventually? Where's
Yeah.
it going? So I think that's the latest from our side. Watch out for that space. So we'll be launching the biodegradable carpets very soon. All
Nice.
made of natural materials, and it'll be fun. It'll be interesting.
Mrs. Modi?
What we are doing, we understand what Payal very rightly said, that it has to start from your own home front, that how are you dealing with it? So even if I go a little bit inward, it has to start in your mind. You have to be, you know, without thinking, you are thinking about it. It has to be so natural in our own way of life. But to take it further on, we really have to become path breakers, or very consciously develop some kind of a, you know, you can say the crusade, you can say, if at all, if you can say. So as a designer, I feel that if we can somehow mobilize the whole of the designers, whether it's fashion designers or the textile or the carpet or music or architectural, whoever is designing, the design intervention into our own cultural handcraft, which has been there since thousands of years, that is required, because the technique is there, whether it's architectural technique, where we used to see those old palaces in Rajasthan, where it used to be air conditioned without electricity. The way the building is, the palaces are built. So we need to understand and respect those very indigenous and intelligent and kind of a technique of our ancestors, and bring it again in today's context. So the designers can do that. I feel like you know, like one should start. I am doing in my own way, which is
Yeah. Sumiran, would you like to?
Sorry.
I was
Yeah.
like,
No, we
I
missed the
would like
last
to say
thing.
the whole of the designer community should come forward for this.
yeah, that's true, because it's more visible also, because the design fraternity gets also a lot of media visibility, and somewhere media plays an important role on taking our thoughts, you know, and making everybody else more conscious about what's happening in society.
Yeah.
So any thoughts, Sumiran?
I was just saying that it has been quite an interesting trend to watch across brands, and I think across sectors in the industry, where people have been using or upcycling waste materials to make entirely new product categories, which, you know, enhances the brand's offering. It enhances what the customer experience is, and I think brands are surprising themselves because it was probably right there in front of them, and they delight themselves because of what it ends up creating, and that delight transfers to the customer. And I think these are small, as ma'am very rightly said, ingenious efforts to refresh the motivation of the craftsmen and the artisans who are working at it, because we all need that refreshment and motivation that comes from new innovation, and the new innovation always comes from a new idea or a requirement. So that's something I've been seeing a lot of brands doing, making entire new product categories, that diversifying their product portfolio like that. And I think at this point, I'd like to raise a point that whether they are international brands in India or Indian brands in India, I think everyone is trying to make a very honest effort to be transparent about their sustainability practices, to the extent that if they know it is not entirely sustainable, they are saying it is not, but they also, share with the audience, share with the customer base at large, that this is what we are trying to do to fix it. And by X year or X timeline, we will be able to reach this point. Whether it is reduction of plastic, whether it is carbon footprint related, whether it is streamlining some operations. So that level of honesty is also a level of confidence, and it speaks of a certain purity of intent, which is very rare.
So now we've sort of reached the end of our session. And since Women Inspiring Network is all about inspiring everybody, we are an inspirational storytelling platform. So we want you all to leave us with a winning message which can inspire everybody. Anjali, I know that, how you started your journey, and, and it's been very interesting. And of course, we'll talk more about your journey, but do tell us quickly, and how can you inspire the women of our country and everybody else? One winning message.
So I don't know how to inspire women and all of that, but all I can say for now is, since we're talking about sustainability, don't worry about repeating your outfit twice on Instagram. Just go ahead and do it. We have to keep wearing the same things. Just buy one good outfit from Anju Modi and keep wearing it.
Well, for me, if I can share, I would say somehow cut down the noise in your life and be in silence and listen to the music around you, the music in the silence which is there, and revive yourself, reinvent yourself, and just celebrate the completely life force. That is it. I mean, just make your way of living accordingly.
Sumiran?
I have a message to share, which is kind of inspired by one of the digital or technological platforms on which I spend a lot of time. We say Instagram is a very public place, but I personally feel it's an extremely private space, because someone could be seeing my post or listening to my video in their pajamas, on the pot, in their car, anywhere. It's an extremely, at the end of the day, when they're all by themselves, it's an extremely private space that they operate out of on a very public platform. So I would say, based on personal experience, that if you feel like you have a story to share that you think could resonate with one other person somewhere, it could make a difference in people's life, please do it with kindness, because there are people who are operating in very private spaces alone with their thoughts, and it would make a massive impact on them. And you never know whose life you're impacting positively. So I would say, find the courage to tell your story, share it with people, and do so with kindness, so that people can learn to trust it, and it will help to create a better and a braver world, for sure.
Payal?
Stuti, I will say the 3 R's. And for me, that would be rethink, recreate, and reinvent. And whether that is your wardrobe, your food, your life, your spiritual, mental space, nature around you, I just think we all need to reinvent. Everything that we've been doing all this time, we have to reinvent.
Yes. That is very, very inspiring. I mean, I remember that I've been thinking of women leadership for 10 years, but the lockdown finally gave me a chance to create the Women Inspiring Network, and it has kept my team and myself very, very inspired and motivated. I mean, the thought of women leadership came when I met such stalwarts like Ariana Huffington, Sheryl Sandberg, and everybody, the C positions in US. So we'll just show you a quick video for a minute. Ishita, could you quickly show a video so that you all can get inspired by the Women Inspiring Network? So on that note, on Women Inspiring
That's
Network,
amazing, Shruti. 10 million.
Yeah.
10 million. Yeah, but with different partners, our film series, of course, had Inox in Business World. And it's all about collaborations. That's something which we did not touch upon, but maybe that's a conversation for next time, that post-pandemic, it's also the time of collaborations. But I would like to thank you all from the Prem Jain Memorial Trust and the Women Inspiring Network for joining us today. And do follow us. And if anyone you know has an inspirational story to share, do ask them to reach out to us on our social media platforms. And any last words, Payal?
No, just a big thank you.
Thank you.
All these beautiful women. Thank you very much. And thanks.
Thank you.
This was a
Big
fabulous-
thank you, and all of you
Thank
happy
you.
Women's Day in advance.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.